Marilyn Monroe, the quintessential Hollywood icon of the 1950s, seemed to possess an uncanny awareness of her tragic fate. Behind the dazzling smile that captivated millions lay a deeply troubled woman who frequently predicted her own premature demise. In one of her final interviews, Monroe hauntingly remarked, "Fame will go by, and so long I've had you, fame. If it goes by, I've always known it was fickle. So at least it's something I experienced. But that's not where I live." These words took on profound significance when she was found dead at just 36 on August 5, 1962. Monroe's personal writings, discovered after her death, revealed a woman who had long contemplated her mortality. In one journal entry from 1961, she wrote, "I think I am going to be one of those actresses who is famous and never happy." In another particularly chilling note, she questioned, "What do you do when you are no longer anyone's object of desire? Maybe you just disappear?" This sense of fading away seemed to preoccupy the actress in her final months. Those closest to Monroe reported increasing references to death in her everyday conversations. Her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, later revealed that Marilyn would often say things like, "I'm not going to be around much longer," or, "When I go, I'm gonna go my way." Her photographer friend George Barris recalled a particularly disturbing moment during their last photo shoot when Monroe suddenly stopped and said, "I won't be here much longer. I don't want to reach 40. I've lived enough for 3 lifetimes." The night before her death, Monroe called several friends, including Peter Lawford, who later claimed she sounded drowsy, and said cryptically, "Say goodbye to the president and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy." Hours later, she would be found deceased in her home, though controversy still surrounds the circumstances of her passing, with theories ranging from accidental to more complex scenarios. Perhaps the most haunting prediction came in Monroe's final interview with Life magazine, published just 3 days before her death. When asked about Hollywood legends, she said, "They're going to realize that I was never what they thought, and they've always tried to destroy what wasn't real anyway." She then added, with what witnesses described as eerie certainty in her voice, "I won't be around to see what they do with my memory." Within days, the world was left only with memories of the woman who seemed to know her candle would burn out long before anyone was ready to say goodbye. Reggae legend Bob Marley's connection to his mortality came in the form of both spiritual beliefs and actual health warnings that he famously disregarded. In 1977, doctors discovered a malignant melanoma in Marley's toe following a soccer injury. Medical professionals strongly advised amputation, but Marley refused, citing his Rastafarian beliefs that prohibited cutting the flesh. Instead, he merely allowed doctors to remove the nail and nail bed, a decision that ultimately led to the cancer spreading throughout his body. What's particularly chilling about Marley's case was his apparent acceptance of death. In numerous interviews, he stated, "Death doesn't exist for me, it's only a transition." This philosophical view of mortality seemed to influence his medical decisions. Friends reported that when discussing his cancer diagnosis, Marley would calmly say, "Josh will call me when he's ready," suggesting a fatalistic acceptance of whatever would come. The lyrics to Redemption song written during his illness contained the prophetic line, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds," reflecting his spiritual preparation for leaving the physical world. In his final concerts, audience members noticed Marley's increasing references to transitioning beyond this life, with impromptu lyrics about going home and meeting the Creator. Perhaps most haunting was a statement Marley made to close friend Alan Skeel Cole just months before his death, "I'll never reach 40, such is life." Born in February 1945, Marley died in May 1981 at the age of 36, fulfilling his own prediction. His final words to his son Ziggy were reportedly, "Money can't buy life," a profound realization as the wealthy musical icon faced his mortality. During his final trip to Germany for alternative cancer treatment, Marley reportedly told his doctor that he was going to Jamaica, even when medical staff urged him to stay. When asked why, he simply stated, "I'm going home to rest forever." He died during the return journey, never making it back to his beloved Jamaica alive. His body, however, was returned there for burial, making his prediction eerily accurate in a way he perhaps hadn't intended. River Phoenix, the promising young actor who captivated audiences with his performances in Stand By Me and My Own Private Idaho, seemed to have a premonition about his untimely passing. In interviews leading up to his death on October 31, 1993, Phoenix made several statements that, in retrospect, appear hauntingly prophetic. "I don't want to die in a car accident," he once remarked. "When he die, it'll be a glorious day. It'll probably be a waterfall." While he didn't pass away near a waterfall, there was something eerily predictive about his awareness of an early death. Friends close to Phoenix reported that he frequently discussed mortality, expressing a belief that he wouldn't live past 30. Tragically, his prediction came true when he collapsed outside the Viper Room in Los Angeles at the age of 23. Phoenix had consumed a lethal combination of substances that resulted in cardiac arrest. His final film, Dark Blood, remained unfinished until nearly 2 decades later. What makes Phoenix's premonition particularly compelling was his journal entries discovered posthumously, where he wrote about feeling like borrowed time was all he had. His sister Rain later shared that River had often spoken about feeling that his life would be brief but impactful, comparing himself to a comet burning bright but destined to burn out quickly. In his short career, Phoenix earned an Academy Award nomination and was widely regarded as one of the most talented actors of his generation. Those close to him noted a change in his demeanor in the weeks before his death. He became increasingly philosophical about life's fragility and spoke of leaving a legacy. On the very night of his passing, witnesses reported that Phoenix told a friend, "I'm going to die tonight," a statement that was brushed off as melodramatic at the time, but would prove devastatingly accurate just hours later. His brother Joaquin's desperate 911 call, begging for help as River convulsed on the sidewalk, became a haunting reminder of how quickly a bright star can be extinguished. Kurt Cobain, the reluctant voice of Generation X and frontman of Nirvana, left behind a trail of disturbing predictions about his own demise. From a young age, Cobain seemed fixated on the idea of dying young and joining what he called the 27 Club, a reference to musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison, who all died at that exact age. In a chilling manifestation of this obsession, Cobain took his own life at the age of 27 on April 5, 1994. Cobain's journal entries, later published posthumously, reveal his long-standing preoccupation with self-harm. In one entry from 1991, 3 years before his death, he wrote, "I hope I die before I become Pete Townsend," revealing his fear of aging and losing relevance. Friends reported that during the height of Nirvana's success, Cobain would often say, "I'm not going to make it to 30, a prediction he fulfilled with devastating accuracy. The lyrics to Nirvana's music contain numerous references to mortality and self-harm that gained greater significance after his death. In Come As You Are, Cobain saying, "And I swear that I don't have a gun," an ironic line given that he would eventually take his life with a shotgun. Even more concerning was a home recording found after his death where he's saying, "Look at me, I'll be dead in a few years," over simple guitar chords. Cobain's widow, Courtney Love, later revealed that Kurt had been writing deeply personal poetry about his struggles for months before his passing. His final note to his imaginary childhood friend Buddha contained references to thoughts he had been contemplating for years, suggesting his actions weren't spontaneous, but the culmination of long-held intentions. Perhaps most haunting were the comments Cobain made during his final interview, where he paraphrased Neil Young's lyric by saying, "It's better to burn out than to fade away," words he would later include in his self-harm note. When asked about his future, he responded with a hollow laugh and said, "I don't think you have to worry about my future plans, they'll sort themselves out." Weeks later, after a failed intervention for his substance use and depression, Cobain returned to his Seattle home, where he fulfilled the dark prophecy he had been writing and singing about throughout his brief but influential career. Gustav Elijah R., known professionally as Lil Peep, embodied a musical movement that blended emo, rap, and punk while frequently addressing themes of depression, emotional struggles, and mortality. What distinguishes Peep from other artists who merely explored dark themes was the explicit and repeated prediction of his own premature passing, which tragically came to pass on November 15, 2017, when he died at just 21 years old from accidental substance complications. publication. Peep's lyrics read like a meticulous documentation of his own demise. In The Way I See Things, released 2 years before his death, he rapped, "I got a feeling that I'm not gonna be here for next year," while in Cobain, he directly compared himself to Kurt Cobain, another artist who died young. Most chilling was his song Life is Beautiful, where he stated, "Everybody telling me life's short, but I wanna die." These weren't merely artistic expressions, they were premonitions wrapped in melody. Social media provided another platform for Pete's concerning predictions. Just hours before his passing, he posted cryptic content with captions suggesting inner struggles. Earlier that same day, he posted, "When I die, you'll love me," a statement that proved eerily accurate as his posthumous popularity far eclipsed what he experienced in life. Months before, he had tweeted, "I don't want to be a 27 Club member. I'd rather not make it to that age," unwittingly predicting that he would indeed pass away even younger. Those close to Peep witnessed his deterioration firsthand. His producer Smokesack later revealed that Peep would often say things like, "I don't think I'm going to be around for very long. That's why I need to get all this music out," explaining his prolific output. During his final tour, Peep told his manager that he felt like he was living the last days of his life, a statement dismissed as melodramatic at the time, but devastating in hindsight. Perhaps the most definitive prediction came in what would be Peep's final interview, conducted just days before his death. When asked about his future, he responded, "I don't expect to be here much longer. Once my heart stops beating, the release will be incredible." Hours before he was found unresponsive on his tour bus in Tucson, Arizona, Pete posted on Instagram, "I just want to be everybody's everything," followed by, "I'm going to get you high now." His final message simply read, "When I die, you'll love me." A prophecy fulfilled as streams of his music increased by over 1,000% in the wake of his death. Chris Cornell, the gifted vocalist behind Soundgarden and Audioslave, left behind a legacy of haunting lyrics that many fans believe foreshadowed his self-harm on May 18, 2017. Cornell's music had long explored themes of depression, isolation, and mortality, but certain songs now stand as eerily prophetic. The Soundgarden track Pretty Noose contains the disturbing imagery of its title, while, like self-harm, details a self-destructive mindset with painful accuracy. Cornell would ultimately pass away in circumstances that chillingly echoed these lyrical themes. What makes Cornell's case particularly unsettling was his performance on the very night of his death. Hours before taking his life in a Detroit hotel room, Cornell performed Soundgarden's song Slaves and Bulldozers, but unexpectedly integrated lyrics from Led Zeppelin's In My Time of Dying with lines like, "Jesus going to make up my dying bed." Audience members later commented on the emotional intensity of this improvised mashup, as if Cornell was communicating something beyond a mere artistic choice. Friends close to Cornell noted changes in his behavior in the months leading up to his death. His wife Vicky reported that Chris had begun discussing mortality more frequently, often saying things like, "I don't know how much longer I can do this." While many assumed he was referring to the physical toll of touring, these statements gained disturbing clarity after his self-harm. During his final interviews, Cornell made references to feeling like he was living on borrowed time, noting that he had outlived many of his musical contemporaries from Seattle's grunge scene. Perhaps most chilling was an interview from 2007, a decade before his death, where Cornell was asked about how he would like to be remembered. He paused before saying, "I would hope that people would remember that I really tried to do something different musically. But honestly, I think in the end, people just remember how you left, not what you did." This statement seems to reflect an awareness that his eventual death might overshadow his artistic contributions. A sad prophecy that has proven partially true, as discussions of his self-harm often dominate conversations about his musical legacy. Cornell's final social media post, made just hours before his death, included a photo of the Detroit Fox Theater where he had just performed, with the caption, "Finally back to Rock City," followed by the lyrics, "No more bullshit," a phrase from Soundgarden's Been Away Too Long, that in retrospect reads like a cryptic final message. Then Bergling, known professionally as Avicii, revolutionized electronic dance music while privately battling personal struggles that he seemed to know would eventually overwhelm him. the Swedish DJ and producer, who passed away on April 2018 at just 28, left behind numerous warnings about his fragile state. In the documentary Avicii True Stories released months before his death, Bergling explicitly stated, "I'm going to die. I've told them this so many times." This wasn't hyperbole. It was a desperate cry for help from an artist pushed to his breaking point. Avicii's music itself contained premonitions of his fate. His 2013 hit Wake Me Up included the lyrics, "Wish that I could stay forever this young," reflecting his awareness that his lifestyle was aging him prematurely. More telling was his 2015 track For a Better Day, which addresses trauma and escape with lines like, "We will never sleep, we will never die," an ironic statement given his severe insomnia and eventual self-harm. His final release, Waiting for Love, speaks of holding on through the darkest days, a battle he ultimately lost. Those in Avicii's inner circle witnessed his deterioration firsthand. His manager, Arash Pernari, later revealed that Tim would frequently say things like, "I don't think I'll live past 30 if I keep going like this." After suffering acute pancreatitis due to excessive drinking and having his gallbladder and appendix removed, Bergling told friends, "My body is telling me something, and I don't think I'm meant to last much longer." Despite these warnings, the relentless touring schedule continued. Perhaps the clearest prediction came in Avicii's retirement letter from 2016, where he wrote, "I know I am blessed to be able to travel all around the world and perform, but I have too little left for the life of a real person behind the artist." He stepped away from touring, but the damage had been done. In his journal entries from his final years, discovered posthumously, Bergling wrote, "The shedding of the soul is the last attachment before it restarts." His final Instagram post, showing him looking pensive at a sunset in Oman where he would later take his life, was captioned with a quote from The Little Prince, "And he goes back into the desert, free and unburdened." Friends who spoke with him in his final days reported that Tim seemed at peace, saying he had finally figured out how to be happy. James Dean, the epitome of youthful rebellion in 1950s America, seemed to possess an almost supernatural awareness of his brief time on Earth. The actor, who died in a high-speed car crash on September 30, 1955, at just 24, left behind numerous statements suggesting he knew his life would be cut short. Perhaps most famous was his line in an interview promoting Rebel Without a Cause, when he said, "Live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse," a mantra he would fulfill with eerie precision less than a year later. Dean's fascination with speed and danger was well documented, but what's particularly chilling are the specific premonitions he shared about cars being his demise. Actor Alec Guinness recounted meeting Dean just 1 week before the fatal crash. Dean proudly showed Guinness his new Porsche Spyder and invited him for a ride. Guinness later recalled, "Something awful prompted me to say, 'If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week.'" Dean laughed off the warning. But Guinness's prediction came true exactly 7 days later. Friends reported that Dean had a preoccupation with mortality that went beyond typical youthful philosophizing. Elizabeth Taylor, his co-star in Giant, revealed that Dean often spoke of feeling like he was racing with death. During filming, he reportedly told her, "I'm not going to live to see 30. I've known that for a long time." Dennis Hopper, another friend, later shared that Dean would sometimes say during drives, "That's the way I'm going to go," whenever they passed accident scenes on the highway. Just 2 weeks before his death, Dean filmed a public service announcement for the National Highway Safety Committee, where he advised drivers to take extra precautions on the highway because the life you save might be mine. The PSA was deemed too eerie to air after his death. Even more unsettling was Dean's decision to name his Porsche Little Bastard, a vehicle that would indeed prove fatal and later gain a reputation for being cursed, after several others died in connection with its parts. In one of his final interviews, when asked about his future plans, Dean gave what now seems like a knowing response. "I don't think I'll have all that many years, so I'm going to act as much as I can right now." Just days before his collision with another vehicle at the intersection of Highways 46 and 41 near Cholame, California, Dean told a friend, "I feel like I'm being pulled towards something inevitable." That inevitability arrived on a stretch of highway now known as James Dean Memorial Junction. Jimi Hendrix, The revolutionary guitarist who forever changed the landscape of rock music seemed hauntingly aware of his brief time on Earth. Throughout his meteoric career, Hendrix made numerous references to an early death that, in retrospect, appear to be more than just poetic musings. In multiple interviews, he stated, "I'm not sure I will live to be 28 years old," a prediction that proved tragically accurate when he died at precisely that age on September 18, 1970. Hendrix's lyrics often contained meditations on mortality that went beyond typical rock star posturing. In the Ballad of Jimmy, recorded a year before his death, he wrote, "Many things he would try, for he knew soon he'd die." Even more chilling was his song Angel, which described a dream where an angel took him away, a song that would only be released posthumously, as if waiting for his prediction to come true before reaching his fans. Those close to Hendrix reported his increasing preoccupation with death in his final months. Monica Dannemann, who was with him on his final night, later revealed that Hendrix had been writing poems about crossing over to another plane of existence. One of these, titled The Story of Life, written just days before his death, contained the lines, "The story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye. The story of love is hello and goodbye. Until we meet again." Perhaps most unsettling was Hendrix's behavior at the Isle of Wight festival, his last major performance. Backstage, he told a journalist, "I'm not going to be around much longer," and when pressed simply said, "I just know, man. I've had my time." Photographers at the event later commented on how Hendrix seemed to be saying goodbye through his performance, playing with a transcendent intensity while occasionally stopping to stare out at the crowd as if taking a final mental picture. Hendrix's final recorded interview contained what now seems like a resigned acceptance of his fate. When asked about his future plans, he replied, "I'm not sure I have one. I think I'm just going to disappear for a while." Within weeks, he had indeed disappeared permanently, joining the pantheon of musical legends whose brilliance was matched only by their brevity. The coroner's report indicated that Hendrix asphyxiated on his own vomit after taking barbiturates, a tragic end that seemed to fulfill the premonition that had followed him throughout his short but revolutionary career. Philip Seymour Hoffman, the consummate character actor known for disappearing into his roles, seems to have harbored an awareness of his own mortality that becomes apparent in retrospect. While not explicitly predicting his sudden passing on February 22, 2014, Hoffman left behind a trail of concerning statements that suggested he understood his health challenges and their potentially serious consequences. After more than 2 decades of wellness, Hoffman had faced renewed struggles in his final year, telling a colleague, "If I don't get help now, I know I'm going to face serious consequences." What makes Hoffman's case particularly haunting were his repeated references to the temporary nature of his success and life. In a 2008 interview, he remarked, "I think happiness is overrated. Satisfied, at peace, those would be more realistic goals." When pressed about his seeming pessimism, he added, "I'm just being realistic. I know exactly how all this ends." At the time, these comments were interpreted as philosophical musings, but they gained darker significance after his death. With a needle still in his arm at age 46, friends and colleagues reported that Hoffman had become increasingly fatalistic in the months before his death. During the filming of The Hunger Games: Mockingjay, co-star Julianne Moore recalled a conversation where Hoffman discussed his children, saying, "I need to be around to see them grow up, but I don't know if I will be." When she expressed concern, he changed the subject. But the comment lingered as a possible acknowledgement of his ongoing struggle with addiction. Perhaps most noteworthy was Hoffman's behavior at the Sundance Film Festival just 2 weeks before his passing. Journalist Victoria Will, who photographed him, later revealed that Hoffman seemed contemplative during their session, telling her, "I'd like to be remembered as someone who was good at their job. That's all that matters in the end." Another attendee reported overhearing Hoffman on the phone, saying, "I've seen how this story can end too many times." The final prediction came in what would be his last public appearance. When asked by a fan about future projects, Hoffman reportedly responded, "I don't think about the future much anymore. I'm just trying to get through today." Within days, he was found unresponsive in his apartment. A journal recovered from his residence contained the haunting entry, "Just accepted the obvious, there are things stronger than me," written just weeks before his passing.